these are things that I'm familiar with, and I'm not, but I wish I was, receiving any money or goods from them in return. I'd also like to thank my 12-year-old son, Scott, for creating the intro slide in the PowerPoint that you're looking at there. He did it in 5 minutes. It's amazing what these kids can do, everything except take out the trash. Anyway, since this is the first Ask a Photo webinar, we're going to review the basics, and then if there's demand, we'll move on to more advanced techniques in a future webinar. If you're expecting to see nonstop beautiful photos of landscapes and baby kittens, you should go look on the internet. Here we're going to review concrete ways that you can make photography work for you and your clients. Now, some of this may be obvious to you, but hopefully you'll pick up some useful things as well. As you all know, photography is a critical factor in our travel activities as well as those of our clients. These days, with Facebook and other social media, we're instantly connected with our friends, relatives, and clients' photos. Sometimes seconds after they're even taken. But more importantly, those images show, for many, what become lasting memories of our travel experience. There are some who can remember every aspect of their life, but for many like me, those images may in fact be all that we remember of a trip years later. That's why it's critical not only to document travel, but to protect your investment. But more on that later. So my mother visited a few weeks ago, and she said she was having trouble with her digital Instamatic camera, as I call it. You remember those Instamatics? I said I'd take a look at it, and it turns out that the AA batteries were dead. While I was looking, I asked her if she wanted me to dump the images on the memory card. I asked her if she had loaded them on her computer. First she said yes, and then she was confused because they were all in the machine, meaning the camera. I tried to explain this repeatedly, but to no avail, and realized that she still had photos on the camera from 2009. So these are the first issues we're going to deal with: camera choice, memory, and storage. The main question that I'm always asked is, what camera to buy? The short answer is I can't really tell you. There's a multitude of cameras, great cameras out there these days, but there are some tips to helping you decide what to choose. The big factor in deciding is price. The more money you have, the more choice you'll get. But the bottom line is, don't waste your money on a camera that costs less than $100, like this. And like what my mother did, and like many a times that we have done also with our kids before a trip, buying a cheap camera. It's not worth it. The quality of the lens is poor, the cameras are difficult to use, and it's a big problem. But if price is no issue, then you have to decide how serious you want to get and decide between an SLR like this with interchangeable lenses and a point-and-shoot camera like this, which fits in your pocket, and it's easy to whip out when a situation presents itself. For me, the choice is simple. Buy them both. Okay, I realize that doesn't help you, but I enjoy the features and advantages of both types. I'll always remember reading the caption under one of those incredible photos of a small plane crashing into a pickup truck with the driver jumping out into midair from the truck. The photographer said, if you carried your cameras with you every day, you get one of these shots every couple of years. I thought, oh, yeah, right. But I did carry my camera every day for years, and I've yet to see one of those shots. They probably posed the whole thing. But anyway, these point-and-shoot cameras really allow you to carry one around in a bag all the time, which makes life a lot easier. Anyway, let's talk about cameras. SLRs, which stands for single lens reflex, are the preferred camera or format for photographers and those more serious photographers. I'm sorry, preferred for professionals and those more serious photographers, because it gives you more choices of lenses. And lenses are really what photography is all about, because they affect the quality of the image. You can get ultra-wide angle, which will allow you to take in more of the scene, or telephotos, which allow you to zoom in from far away and are great for wildlife as well. In terms of brands, I've always used Canon and prefer them, but Nikon is great, and if you have the big bucks, Leica has excellent quality, but very expensive. In terms of prices, SLRs start from about $600 and then go up into the thousands. These days, all the major name brands have great quality lenses for SLRs and the point and shoots, so it's really a matter of choosing from among the main features that are offered on the body of the camera. In terms of disadvantages, I think that weight and bulk are the main ones for SLRs, because even though they've gotten lighter and lighter over the years, they still make it much more difficult to compete with the ease of traveling with one small point and shoot, which is much less intrusive when traveling in countries where people are not accustomed to cameras. Yes, there are still places on Earth like that, and we specialize in them in Hidden Treasure Tours. With an SLR, each lens and optional feature will not be cheap and will add to the weight and require a larger camera bag. And don't forget another flash too, because the built-in flash is not as powerful and drains the camera battery, which means lugging extra batteries and a flash charger for them. And it's always good to use the rechargeables. So you get the message? I'm not trying to discourage you, but be prepared for the extra weight and expense of using an SLR. Now, one thing that I always tell my clients is never pack your cameras in your checked luggage and expect it to get there on arrival. X-rays make it too inviting to pluck something from your bag, and you never know at what stage it was taken. Also, even though your insurance may cover it, you'll be without a camera on a trip where it may not be possible to buy one. One disadvantage with point and shoots is speed. These are much slower than SLRs, and frequently you can lose a great action shot that an instant SLR can capture. When considering a point and shoot, one thing I think is essential is to make sure it has the image stabilization feature. As you can see, this is what it would usually show on the back of the camera when you push on the menu button. It shows that little hand there with the curvy lines on both sides, and that indicates that the camera has the stabilization feature. So basically you want to make sure that your photos don't get blurred like this. Now these little cameras have so many other features that you'll never use most of the time unless you read the book, all 145 pages of it. And these days the trend is to make you print it out online, which is insult to injury as far as I'm concerned. But who does that or can even understand half the things that are written in there? I prefer cameras that allow easy access to features, which varies in every model, unfortunately. Another feature to look at is the zoom. Most point and shoots have a zoom, but look for the one that gives you the most range from wide angle, which would be around 24 to 28 millimeters, to telephoto, which they usually indicate by the magnification factor, like a 4x or an 8x, with an 8x bringing in objects twice as of what a 4x would. You should always check a few sites like eOpinion, CNET, PopularPhotography.com for reviews first, but nothing beats going into a store and handling a camera first and having a salesperson explain the features. For those who are in the New York area, B&H Photos have great in-store classes that they run regularly. Now, remember Steve's first rule of travel photography, which is never buy a camera right before a trip without using it. Why waste your precious time on an expensive tour trying to figure out how to turn the damn thing on, or finding out that you had to charge the battery for 24 hours first? Whether it's an SLR or a point and shoot, look for a camera that takes video as well. There are times that having a video is so much more fun to see, like when my cousin Harry went over Victoria Falls while tubing. It wouldn't be the same as a still shot. Many people have this feature on their cameras now and don't even realize it. Check out the top of the dial on your camera and look for one of the symbols, which such as the movie camera symbol there, or one that has a movie frame in it. After you download the videos on your computer, Most PCs or Macs have software that will play the video by double-clicking on it. One of the big features that camera companies push in advertisements is the pixel size. You'll see numbers like 12.0, 14.0, 16.0, etc. Every year that number gets larger, and what that means is a higher quality image that for most of the general public who look at 4x6s isn't really necessary. It allows you to blow up a picture and have less grain in it. But the larger the number, the more megabytes the image is and the more space it will take up on the memory card and on your computer, which of course makes those memory card manufacturers very happy. Cameras usually come preset to the highest setting, but you can reduce the size of the pixels, and that will give you more overall pictures on your card, your memory card. Now, before I go on, I want to say that those folks who think that their cell phones can give you the same quality as a real camera, forget it. They do get better every year, but it's still not the same. The next issue to discuss is pixels. After pixels is the memory cards that hold the images. Most cameras have a limited amount of internal memory that will allow you to take a few shots without the card. But beyond that, you will need to have one of these cards that will allow you to hold hundreds of images on them. They're intended to be temporary storage vessels until you download them on your computer, to be never seen again in many cases, unless you're my mother, in which case they stay there forever. The cards come in different sizes and shapes. Point and shoots generally have these SD cards there. They range from 1 gigabyte to 16, 32 gigabytes. The larger the number, the more photos that they hold, and the more expensive, of course. I tend to stick with the brand name cards like SanDisk because I've had 2 generic ones crash on me, and that means that you lose those images for good unless you've already downloaded them. SLRs tend to have larger cards called compact flash cards, which is the one on the left side there, with the same range of memory from 1 to 32 gigs. Now, this poses the problem that if you have different size cards, how are you going to transfer them to a laptop while you're traveling? Now, here's a cool device that handles 5 different sizes of cards simultaneously. You can see from the side there. Sorry, I thought I turned that phone off. There's another cool card. One sec. Apologize for that. So what you can do is you plug all your cards into this, and it goes right into your laptop, and you can download everything there at the same time. Now, there's another very cool card out there, which I haven't bought yet, but I've heard about it, and it's this one here. It's called the iFi Mobile X2, and it allows you to wirelessly transfer the images on your card while it's in your camera to the computer through the internet. It costs about $80 a card, and it only comes in this SD card size. But I think this is a great option for downloading stuff from your camera. And what happens is it will delete the photos after they've been downloaded onto your computer, so you can continuously use the card. Next tip to tell your clients: always take 1, if not 2, extra memory cards on vacation with them. And always take at least 1 extra battery, because there are a few standards among the camera makers, and you may not be able to find one where you're going if yours dies or gets lost. When it comes to batteries, this is another factor that I use into determining a camera to purchase. I prefer to be eco-friendly and use cameras that come with rechargeable batteries. That's not a problem with SLRs, as most of them do, but point and shoots, you have to look around. Most point and shoots use AA batteries like this, and then I get the rechargeable AA's, but that means buying a charger for them and a battery tester and extra sets, and it gets heavier and heavier. I like the Panasonic Lumix series because they use rechargeable batteries and come with Leica lenses that are of excellent quality. One of the great features of digital photography is it allows us to see the picture right after we've taken it, and thus retake it 6 times if you're my sister and just can't keep your eyes open. Believe it or not, yes, we had to take this picture 6 times. It also allows you to delete it right away, this is usually what it looks like on the camera. There's a little trash can there. You push that button and it will delete the photo, but you want to make sure that you don't delete the whole card there, so be careful, don't do it quickly. Here's another tip for your clients. Most cameras come with a feature called red eye prevention, which pre-flashes and in theory tricks the eyes into thinking the flash has gone off, which triggers your cornea to adjust to prevent that red eye look. It sounds great, but it slows down the image taking, and you can miss some great facial expressions that are long gone before the shutter actually opens. I recommend turning it off, and I can't tell you where it is on each camera, but this is what it looks like in the back of mine when you push the menu button. You can see at the bottom it says red eye removal, and I've turned it off there. So I recommend turning it off on yours. And if you do get red eye, most photo processing websites or machines at stores offer the ability to get rid of it anyway, so there's really no reason to keep it on. The next issue from my mother's experience is storage. There are a few of us who could get away with keeping a memory card in a camera with images from 2 years ago, especially on a 1 gigabyte card. Remember the good old days when you just stuffed those negatives and slides in your drawer or closet, never to be seen again? Hey, that's my closet. Oh, that's right, I took it. Now that means that we need to store the images somewhere, and that's the hard drive of your computer. But that shouldn't be the only place you store it, because hard drives are not meant to last forever. As a matter of fact, the average life of a hard drive is only about 5 years. So back up your photos as you should, pardon me, for your regular hard drive, because it would be a waste to lose all those precious moments of your travel experiences if you lost it to a hard drive crash. Now you may have heard of cloud computing, which is basically a virtual backup on somebody else's massive hard drive. There are a few companies out there like Carbonite.com which back up your hard drive continuously when your computer is on. If your computer ever crashes, and of course that never happens, right? It will restore all your backup photos as well as any other files you had on that computer to your new computer. It runs about $60 a year per computer, but it's worth every dime. I've already had it happen once, and my wife has had it happen too. We were able to restore everything. You can also buy external hard drives and back up to them, and there are a few limited online storage sites like Flickr and Picasa as well. There are a number of software packages that allow you to file them on your computer, and you can actually recognize the faces of the people for future searches when you do that. What I do is I file them in folders and then subfolders, dividing them into personal, work-related, ASTA-related, and by month and by year. You'll have to find out what's best for you. If you're a PC person, always store your photos under the My Pictures or My Document folders instead of randomly on your computer, because Windows tends to protect those folders if there's a crash, but it depends on how serious it is, of course. When I want to print photos, pardon me, or show relatives or friends, I put them up on a website such as Clark Photo or Kodak or York Photos, which allows you to email a list of friends and have them click a link to see and purchase them if they want. There is a limit to how long you can keep them up there. I think it's about a year, but I think each site is different, and the quality is really good. A lot of times the photos will need to be manipulated for color balance or brightness. There are limits to what you can do, but cameras don't always interpret what you see the same way, and will make the image muddy or darker depending on what's in the picture itself. There's software like Photoshop that allows you to autocorrect these things. Photoshop isn't cheap, but Microsoft Office comes with a program that isn't as good, no shock there, right? Called Microsoft Office Picture Manager, but it is free with the purchase of Microsoft Office, which I think most people have if they have a PC. Okay, let's take a question by email. Here's one. Steve, is it really necessary for you to use me as an example in your webinar? Love, Mom. Wait a minute. How did she get on here? Ashley? She's not a travel agent. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, my mother is 88 years old, young, and I love her, but mastering the TV remote webinar, I think, will be the first thing she takes before camera-related stuff. Anyway, let's review what we've gone over so far. And I've added some things that we haven't gone over for the sake of time. When buying a camera, determine the budget first. My suggestion is to start with a point-and-shoot camera, which will run between $150 to $500. Make sure the camera has the image stabilization feature. Try to find a model with rechargeable batteries. Look for a camera that does video as well. Buy an extra battery and an extra memory card, minimum 2 gigs, before any trip. Always use the camera before the trip. Buy lens cleaning paper and a blower brush, and don't use your dirty shirt to clean the lens. Never pack the cameras in check bags. Take various sizes of Ziploc bags, especially when traveling to beach vacations, and put the cameras in them when going out on boat rides to protect them from water damage. They also help protect from dust on safaris or other dusty locations. Keep the cameras out of direct sun and never leave in a car dashboard compartment. If the camera accepts a protective UV filter, buy one and screw it into the front of the lens. Most of these point-and-shoot cameras don't do that. There are some that do, but the SLRs almost all do. Backup photos on your computer as frequently as possible using named and dated photos under My Pictures. That's for those who have PCs. Look into cloud backup systems like Carbonite.com. And don't use your mother as an example in your webinars. I'll be hearing about that. There's also a lot of books you can purchase if you want to get serious about it. You can see there's the Digital Photography for Dummies series. Yes, there is one, believe it or not. Also, on behalf of the ASTA Legal Department, I'd like to reiterate some info that was sent out recently, and that is that if you have a website and have photos on there that you or your web designer, shall we say, borrowed from someone on the internet, you're legally bound to pay the photographer who took them, regardless of your intent or the chance that you didn't even know who owned the rights to them. Because photos are like literary content. If you plagiarize it, you can get into some serious trouble. So better to play it smart and check now before somebody else finds them. I don't know if you've heard, but there was a couple of cases recently where that came up. So let's go over some tips for taking good travel photos. When photographing people, always get as tight as possible. People want to see clear shots of themselves or their friends, so fill the frame with their people's heads. Always try and shoot at their level instead of pointing the camera up or down at people. When you shoot up or down, you risk distorting their faces, as well as their bodies, of course. When you use a flash on a point-and-shoot camera indoors, you can increase the ISO number, and that used to be called the ASA number, for those who remember that back in the old days. If your pictures are coming out too dark, you want to use a higher ISO number indoors or outdoors at dusk. The higher the ISO number, the darker the situation you can take a photo in, and the further the reach of those tiny flashes on these cameras. All the cameras are not the same, but if you go to the menu on the back, you'll probably see a screen that looks like this, where it says sensitivity. And you can increase the number to about 400, which should work well inside. Remember also, even though you have more sensitivity, it's grainier too at the higher numbers. So you want to remember to reduce the number when you go back in. Now here's a shot that I took when we were in South Africa at the IDE. I guess that was 2 years ago. I increased the ISO number and was able to get a shot based on, I think this is just you see the floodlights from the vehicles there. But again, as I said, when you go back into daylight situations, you want to decrease the number back to, say, 100 because you'll get a sharper image. Now, if you have the opportunity, always take the photo with the sun to your back. Not at night, obviously. If you're taking a photo of someone with the sun behind them, you'll probably get a silhouette or at minimum a darkened face. If you have no chance to turn them around so the sun is behind you, then use the fill-in flash on your camera to brighten those areas in the shade. You know, the meters inside the cameras are geared to exposing for average gray scenes. So if you take a picture with a white sandy beach or the ski slopes with a lot of snow on it, you'll notice that they tend to come out underexposed because the camera is trying to make everything gray in it. Now, pardon me, some cameras have settings for beaches and snow that tell the camera to compensate for the whiteness. Or you can adjust the exposure by pushing the function or menu button on the back. And this is what you would be looking at, probably a screen like this. You can see that it's set at 0 normally, but you can just push the arrows over and open it up by 2 stops. And what that does is it opens the lens to let more light in because the meter is being fooled by all that white light that's out there already. Another good thing to do is lock in the focus before you take a picture. Here's an example. Cameras usually offer a few different types of focus. I prefer the spot focusing, which allows me to focus on what I want. I turn the camera to the main subject, such as the crocodile in the foreground, with the center square on it in the viewfinder, and then I push the shutter release halfway down, which locks in the focus, but I gotta have to keep my finger on the button, and then I turn it around to compose the picture as I would like. In this shot, you can see where that's happened so that the crocodile in the back is actually out of focus. And when you're taking pictures of something and there's not a lot of depth of field there, you always want to try to focus on the person or thing in the foreground, just as a general rule. So that's all the topics that I had to cover here. I hope that wasn't too much for you. We can take a few questions. Do you have any? Okay, let's see what we got here. 1 sec, sorry. All I have to do is figure this out. Okay. One question. What do you think of leaving the ISO on auto on a point and shoot? Yeah, that's the easiest thing to do, certainly with these point and shoots. The problem is I've noticed that sometimes it could run up to over 800 ISO on the camera based on their choice of what it should be. And that can be a very grainy photo. So it's up to you to decide that, do some experimentation and try. That's really what it's all about, is experimenting with your camera. Okay, can you go over the lock focus again? When you take your camera in hand and push down halfway, it will lock the focus on whatever it is you have. Well, first of all, it depends on what settings that the camera is put on. There's different settings. They also have settings there to recognize facial recognition. So you'll see little green squares that will pop up in your viewfinder. And that means that it's taking an average of all the faces in the picture and focusing on that. As I said, I prefer the spot focus, which will, you can change the setting and it'll give you a little square right in the center of the viewfinder, and that's what the only thing will be focused on. So I turn that, I'll point, say, looking at this picture here, to the crocodile in the foreground, make sure that square is right on the crocodile's head in the foreground, push down the shutter release halfway down, hold it, don't let go, and then I turn the camera up and take the picture, push down all the way to take the full picture. If I had not done that with that spot focus, it would have focused on the crocodile in the back, because that's right in the center of the photo. Or sometimes you'll have people who are standing with a space or gap in between them, and you'll get a photo, you'll get a focus on a wall behind them instead of the actual people themselves. So I hope that's clear now. We will be recording this session so you can watch it again, which is one of the other questions. And that looks like someone asked, what will we cover in a more advanced course? You're leaving for Africa in 15 days. Okay, well, send me an email, and we can go over if you have more questions on that too. But basically, we could go into other things like lighting and other equipment to take with. If you're going to Africa, at minimum, you should try to have a 400 millimeter lens, because even though you go out on safari and get relatively close to animals, you'll get a lot, be able to pick up a lot more with a 400 millimeter lens. So if you can get that and zoom, that would be great as well. I haven't been able to find an extra rechargeable battery for my camera. Where should I look? You can go online. There are websites. I can't remember the name of it. Battery, whatever. If you do a Google search for rechargeable batteries, plug in the numbers, you'll have all these sites that will be able to give you even generic versions of the batteries, and they're much cheaper than the original ones. So I think that's all the questions that I see here. Now, also, as being a member of ASTA's Board of Directors, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention to you that these webinars are free for all of you, regardless of whether you're an ASTA member or not. And if you aren't an ASTA member, you should be. ASTA is here to represent all of us in the travel trade. Our legislative efforts on the state and federal level on your behalf are unparalleled. The best way for legislators to take us seriously, though, is for ASTA to be able to say that we represent all of the travel industry. And we can't do that if you aren't a member. So please go to asta.org, and I know you're in front of a computer right now, so don't deny it, and become a member today. You can also, if you have any questions, send an email to join@asta.org. And Marriott is actually offering to pay $50 of your membership for new members. So you can see that when you go online and try to set it up. Thanks again, and certainly if you have any other questions, you can email me those. And let's see if I can get my next screen to come up here. There we go. Ashley, take it away.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Remember, the webinar was being recorded, so if you would like to listen to the presentation again, you can visit the audio-video library section located on asta.org. So once again, thank you, Steve, and also thank you all for joining us during today's webinar. This will conclude today's presentation, and we hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon.